This is the field of 68. I'm Vince Wolfram.
I'm Jojo Cavanagh in Auburn, Alabama. And this
is Straight Out the Jungle. Welcome back to Straight Out the Jungle. My name is Vince Wolfram.
And I'm Jojo Cavanagh.
And last night, Tahad Pettiford scored a career-high 24 points to lead the number 1 Auburn Tigers in a survival kind of win over number 23 Georgia in a furious last-minute rally to win 70-68 on Saturday in Athens. It's the Tigers' 10th consecutive win, but it was a tough one, and they'd had Auburn faithful holding on for dear life.
Yeah, that was the longest 0.6 seconds of my entire life. I think everyone thought that. I don't know what was going on with the refs, with Auburn, but longest 0.6 seconds of my life.
Never easy when you go to Athens, and having an ending like that doesn't make it any easier than that. It was a great win, but a tough one, to say the least. Bruce Pearl said after the game, it's tough to win on the road. It's a great road win. There are a lot of things to learn from. We missed some free throws late, which we haven't done. Georgia's going to beat almost everybody who comes in here, meaning this building. He said, proud of our ball club. That's cool to hear from your head coach, that even after a game where it feels like everything went wrong, not only is your coach proud of you, but he recognizes the good and the environment in a road venue like Georgia, which I thought their venue has been improving its audience, and they certainly came with energy yesterday.
Yeah, there was a video posted where like the student section was like wrapped around the entire arena again. And it looked like kind of the Auburn line for Neville Arena. And I feel like Georgia hasn't really ever had that, like you said, the Anthony Edwards moment. But even then, like this is the first time I feel like you've really seen like people line up for Georgia basketball.
Yeah, it is very rare. And I guess the stat we should know going in, we should have been more confident, because Bruce Pearl is undefeated against Georgia head coach Mike White. Became 7 for 7 last night against the Bulldogs' current head coach. He was the coach of Florida too, so Bruce Pearl gave him the L's there. But a guy that helped Bruce get to that undefeated record was, it's going to shock you, it's a big game. Who else but the freshman?
Tahad Pettiford had a career game last night. He had 24 points, 5 threes. He had 15 points at halftime. Now we're going to talk about that horrible ending of the first half in a little bit, but if we didn't have Tahaad Pettiford in this game, it is so easy to say we would have lost this game without Tahaad Pettiford. He had 12 points with just 10 minutes and 50 seconds left in the first half. So just talk about, went on SEC Network afterwards and said that, you know, he was like, they asked him, what did you think of Georgia coming in at the end? And he said, I knew we had it. So just confidence from the freshman to score 24 points on the road again, and against a ranked opponent. So Tahad against a ranked opponent averages 17 points per game, 51% from the field against ranked teams. He has 21 makes per game. He's scored double digits against every single ranked team. So he had the highest plus minus on the team at Georgia with 19, and you mentioned, you know, at the end, Denver Jones misses a free throw. Tahaad Pettiford, the third game this season where he makes 2 free throws in clutch time. So he comes off the bench scoring 24 points. He's a freshman scoring 24 points. He's scored double digits against ranked teams. He's scoring double digits on the road in SEC play. I mean, there was one play where Georgia had cut the lead down to 1. It was 28-27. Tahaad Pettiford makes a 3 and just shushes the crowd. Like, it was just, I know he's part of the Aura gang. Like, that was aura. That is the definition of aura. Freshman having 15 points at halftime. I'll talk later about that whole stretch of disaster, like I said, but Tahaad Pettiford was the one that, if we did not have him in this game, easily a loss for Auburn.
Yeah, looking at it very black and white, the guy that showed up in every single big game has been Tahad. And we talked about it. Obviously, he's stepped up in those big moments, but I don't think it's becoming a shock to many people in the Auburn program. But even some certain plays, you just want to say, wow, when it happens. There was a couple, we had Janai on the bench making an extra call to God because Tahad was going off. He had the step backs going. He was shooting the lights out from beyond the arc. And I second exactly what Coach Pearl said after the game. He said he's a special player. Special players have to make special plays in tough circumstances. And I think the circumstance would have been a lot tougher if you didn't have that special player. So Tahad was the medicine to cure Auburn's sick play yesterday in a game where they were having trouble really trying to find momentum. And I thought another thing too, his offense was fantastic, But in a game where Denver Jones struggled offensively and the morale could be down, Tahad stepped up on defense. You look at Georgia's best guard, Silas Demery Jr. He finished with 8 points, shot 3 for 10, and only had 2 assists to go along with 3 turnovers. So Tahad stepping up on defense despite a tough day from Denver. I know Denver got in at the end to play defense, but that's pretty granted. I feel like how he's played opposing teams' best guards so far, but it was great to see Tahad step up not only on offense and sink the amount of threes and score the amount of points that he did, but also on the defensive end, really, really getting after the Bulldog guards.
Yeah, and again, he spoke with SEC Network afterward, and they asked him, how is Auburn winning these 2 SEC games without Johni Broome? He said, we can go without him, and we're showing it. And Johni Broome tweeted out having the best youngin in the country. You know, Ja'Kai Howard tweeted out. We had Wendell Green Jr. tweet out. I think he tweeted out a while ago saying Tahad Pettiford is going to be one of the best guards in Auburn history. He retweeted it again and said, this is correct. So having past Auburn players, current Auburn players, just know this guy is special.
Yeah, it's hard to not take note of how real deal this kid is, because he's stepped up. He's been the guy that has shined in the big moments. And I think we'll certainly see that more as the SEC schedule continues. But I think he was the real winner of today's game. And there was another guard, too, beside him, Miles Kelly, who we just spoke to last week. So if you haven't checked that out, check it out in the link in the description of this video. But he was a guy that was very excited for this Georgia game. He's a transfer from Georgia Tech, as we've mentioned before. But that's an in-state rivalry. He's a guy from Georgia, used to play at Georgia Tech, so playing against the Bulldogs is a pretty big thing. I thought Miles was very consistent in yesterday's game. In a game where it felt like it was fiery sometimes and Auburn went cold and hot and cold and hot, I felt like the pressure from Miles and what he was bringing was consistent throughout. He just showed toughness. That's really what it was, despite the turnover at the end of the game where that really, I don't know, got every Auburn fan riled up, and it was a tough spot to see, which, on that note, one rule when you're throwing the basketball in, when the clock is below a certain amount of seconds, never throw the ball to the corner. Like, if you have one job, get it to the middle, because the middle, you open up everything. If you throw it to the corner, a trap is coming, and if you can't get the ball out, you're in trouble. And that's exactly what Georgia did. They iced Miles when Chad threw it into the corner, and he was stuck. I don't know what else he could have done when you're that deep into the corner with only a certain amount of time left, and your only job is to not give the ball away. It's 2-on-1. That's bound to happen. Besides the point, you learn from that in a fortunate way because you still walk out with a win. I thought Miles, because he had been in situations like this before, he's played against tough teams. He said to us he likes to be the villain on the road. And I thought in a way he was. While Tahad was the evil villain, he was just the villain sidekick for this game. So the villainous nature stayed true against Georgia. He seemed like he had a little edge to him. He wasn't forcing offense, which personally, I wouldn't have been mad if he did force a little bit more offense, because I like when he shoots the basketball. I have confidence in his ability to score, but maybe just a little more when somebody like Chaney isn't scoring like he usually is. And Chad Baker-Mazara is missing more shots than usual. Tahad's stepping up, but I thought Miles could have taken maybe a little more assertive approach on offense. I know that's not how he portrays himself on the floor. He's not a forceful guy, but let the game come to you, yes, but when your team needs a basket, I think he's a guy that we could rely on a little more. He finished with 7 points in the first half. 3 of those 7 came from the logo, which is always a good sign. He's averaging 11.5 points in his career against Georgia and has scored in double figures in 3 of those 4 games against the Bulldogs. A couple of those were with Georgia Tech, but a good one last night from Miles against the Bulldogs.
Yeah, he ended with 13 points, 5 rebounds. Those were all defensive rebounds. So him and Chad Baker-Mazara had the most defensive rebounds on the team. So those coming from your guards, not your bigs, that is huge. And Miles was saying, he wants to keep that trend of having a lot of rebounds and double doubles go. So he had 5 rebounds last night. But you mentioned that 3 from the logo, which, by the way, was insane. I know you hate that logo, but Miles Kelly shooting from the logo is crazy. But he had that
on the logo.
Miles Kelly had that 3, and then it kind of was that drought. It was just the Tahaad Pettiford show. But then at the end, when Georgia was coming back and Georgia went on that insane run, it was Miles Kelly that going into halftime had a layup and then 2 free throws, which was Auburn's last few points, last 4 points. So that was huge coming from Miles Kelly when Georgia was really coming into halftime, him making those 4 points quick. So Auburn had a little bit more of a lead going into halftime and Georgia didn't take it.
Yeah, Tahad was the physical silencer. Miles was the mental silencer, and it gave Auburn some motivation, some confidence after, like you said, that steep hill in the first half, which you're about to talk about. But to see that from Miles and to get those tiny little things, the little Miles Kelly moments where it's like, oh, leadership has taken place, and you could tell just it changed the mojo of the team before heading into the halftime.
Yeah, so Auburn started off amazing. We were leading by 17. Everyone was so happy. And then it quickly went down. Georgia went on an 18-7 run. It was at one point a 13-0 run. Auburn missed 12 straight field goals. Now, not going to go through it all, but just to give you a little bit of what happened, this is just me reading the play-by-play. Chad Baker-Mazara missed jumper. Miles Kelly defensive rebound. Chaney Johnson missed jumper. Denver Jones missed layup. Jaheim Hudson offensive rebound. Miles Kelly missed three-pointer. Foul on Chad Baker-Mazara. Chaney Johnson defensive rebound, but then Miles Kelly missed three. Like just it was just you go on the play-by-play and it is just miss for that large portion of time where Georgia went on that 18-7 run. And this is rare for Auburn. We haven't seen this really that much this season where Auburn just cannot shoot the basketball. So from I think what was it? This halftime drought, Chad was 1 for 8, Chaney was 1 for 5, Denver was 1 for 5. So kind of looking at that, those are three guys who usually probably score in double figure. And without Janai, the last first half, it was the Chad Baker-Mazara and Chaney Johnson show. So for that to happen in this first half was kind of a 360, was a drastic difference. And then, like I mentioned before, Miles Kelly had those last few points. But when Auburn was up by 17, it was just the Tahad Pettiford show. He had 12 of those 17 points. And then Jaheim Hudson had 2, but it was assisted by Tahad Pettiford. And then Jakai Howard had a nice jumper. So really, it was kind of Tahad, Jakai, and Jaheim during that 17-point lead that kind of led the show. So this is kind of rare to see from Chad, from Chaney, and Denver that they did not have the best offensive moments. Now, going into the second half, Chad Baker-Mazara definitely steps up. Denver Jones did not have his best game. Chaney Johnson did not have his best game. So hopefully that lights a little fire up to them coming home next game against Tennessee. But yeah, Georgia going on a 13-0 run and Auburn just missing 12 straight from the floor. That is not like this Auburn team at all. And I know everyone was like, what? And then throughout the entire game, Auburn was 8 for 20 missing layups. And I just was watching this game. You just were like I read that before, miss. This is, I've never been sitting in a game where, oh my God, Auburn can't even get it in the basket. And they were easy shots. It wasn't like, I think there was one, Chaney Johnson just missed an alley-oop from Denver, or you just, like I said, 8 for 20 from layups. They just couldn't make those shots. So I don't know what was in the water in Athens, but it just seemed like during that drought, just Auburn could not make a shot. Georgia could make a shot. And thank God for Tahaad Pettiford.
In a way, it's so demoralizing. You get up that 17 points, you're talking to the Georgia faithful in the building, and then like that, it happens, and Georgia starts getting back into the game. Your defense starts to falter. You're 8 for 20 on layups, 3 of 6 dunking the ball on the day. When those stats are in the picture, it's tough to win games. And Auburn went into halftime. I didn't like our odds. Like, our momentum was through the floor. We didn't seem confident in what we had done in those first 10, 15 minutes. When it got after that 6-minute mark, the confidence of the team seemed to sort of plummet. And that's something we haven't really seen from this team. They've had leads and given them up and made it into close games before, but not in the first half like we saw last night. That was certainly eye-catching. And I know that's something this week that Burgo and Bruce Pearl are going to break down, and they're going to figure out the why behind it. And I think a lot of it is just making the simple shots, and a guy you rely on like Chaney Johnson, I mentioned last episode. Like, it's rare to see him miss a mid-range jump shot or a mid-range shot or a shot close to the basket. You feel like it's Cash App every single time, but last night it wasn't. And to see that and how the team responded to it wasn't very encouraging, I thought. So to see in this next Tennessee game what happens at the end of the first half and how they close will be really, really interesting.
Yeah, not being able to shoot the basket for that time on the road environment, and Auburn still never letting Georgia get a lead the entire game. Yes, they cut it down to one, but that is just, like I said, it is because of Tahaad Pettiford, but still to be on the road in an SEC environment where Georgia is shooting lights out and Auburn can't even make a basket, the fact that Georgia never took a lead is huge because I think that definitely would have dampened Auburn's confidence even more. But we have to talk about the free throw line too. Auburn shot 60% from the free throw line, UGA shot 45%. So all around, just a horrible game for both teams from the line. But Auburn cannot be shooting 60% from the free throw line in close games if you want to win on the road in the SEC.
I've been shocked at how many games that Auburn has had in SEC play where both teams just shoot like recycling bins from the free throw line. Like it's not good. And it's not going to be good as the season goes on. You know what happens in March. There's close games and there's, I guess, not SEC teams that you're going to play in the tournament too, who those teams have made their free throws. The Big East teams, they're 100% from the line in some games. These Big Ten teams, even, they get to the line because it's an advantage. If Auburn continues to attack like they have been, get to the line like they've had been, they have to capitalize, because at the end of the day, that's points you leave on the board. This game might not have been a 2-point finish where we're all holding on to our breaths for the last 18 minutes and 0.6 seconds of time that we're watching this ball game. If you make your free throws, it makes a way bigger difference than you might expect. And it, especially when you're looking back at the game, wow, it was a 2-point game and it was so close at the end, but you really left a lot of freebies on the board.
Yeah, and we're going to talk now about Jaheim Hudson. So coming into this game, he didn't get that much minutes against Mississippi State when Janai Broome was out, but this game he was in the game. I think 5 minutes into the game, so Jaheim Hudson had a lot more minutes, and I think he proved himself.
Yeah, Jaheim Hudson was a breath of fresh air for this Auburn team in the absence of Janai Broome and during a game where Chaney Johnson was struggling to find his groove. And we have been waiting to see now who would step up in the absence of Janai Broome. The bigs have been producing with Janai Broome, but in a game where it's not that way, who's going to be the guy? And Turtle, as they call him, he had averaged 7.3 minutes up to this game. He had 8 minutes in the first half, 11 in the second. He basically played 2 games in one day based off how his minutes were. So playing a season high 18 minutes. Jaheim had 5 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 steals. Now, that's not going to jump off the stat sheet in any NBA draftee maybe or scout, but in this game, it was huge. Even Bruce said, I thought Jaheim Hudson did a phenomenal job stepping up and holding down the fort defensively. That is really, really telling. If your coach is saying in the 18 minutes you played, which is by far the most he had this year, he really protected and he did a phenomenal job. I don't think that can go without saying. And that's what this team, I think, is all about, stepping into your moment and really making the most of it. I think he helped alongside Tahad get the bench production up. Auburn won the bench points 32-15 over Georgia. And I thought those two guys, especially Jaheim against the big men, was really, really big. And he really helped to slow down Asa Newell and really limit Samoto Cyril too. 2 bigs for Georgia that were dominant coming into the game, big, strong, husky guys that are hard to get off the boards. They're hard to get your shot off against. And for Jaheim to produce offensively, get rebounds in the minutes he played, I thought was really, really telling.
Yeah, Jaheim Hudson had 3 offensive rebounds, which I think is huge because offensive rebounds leads to points. I've been saying this for weeks. And then there was one basket, which was just Tahad had this nice pass underneath, and then Jaheim Hudson was able to dunk it. So, but yes, I agree. He was a breath of fresh air in a game where Chad Baker-Mazara didn't play his best. Chaney Johnson did his player's best, and we're so used to those guys playing their best. And Dylan Cardwell didn't have the best offensive performance. He had a great rebounding game, but Jaheim Hudson was that breath of fresh air that when he was on the court, like this is for the first time it wasn't in Auburn winning by 30, or Jaheim Hudson sometimes came in when Janai Broome was out, but this was he was a breath of fresh air, and I think he really played well on the road in Georgia.
And I think it really helped out Dylan as well. He wasn't huge on the scoreboard against Georgia, but he led the Tigers, 7 rebounds, had 3 assists, 4 block shots, and 2 steals. If you read that stat to anybody, they're going to say, wow, that guy had a great game. But because Dylan had 0 points, you might, or because he was limited on the scoreboard, you might not think that. Now, he was one of 4 Auburn Tigers that finished with positive plus minus. And in the second half, when he was really, really needed, he was one of 2 players that positively impacted the Tigers on both ends of the floor. And I think, in my opinion, it was the boards against Georgia that really set Dylan apart. Bruce said we didn't falter on the boards, which is true. You didn't feel like you did in the South Carolina game where it was like, oh, another shot went up. Oh, we didn't get it. Oh, like that's not what the coaches were thinking. Now, media were like, Auburn, get the rebound. Okay, they got it. They got the rebound. They're not going to get killed on the offensive boards. And I mean, you have 25 defensive rebounds. Georgia has 12 offensive. That's a ratio that you live with if you're Auburn. And that's one that Bruce said in the press conference that he was kind of skeptical of heading into the game, was that defensive difference. But Dylan Cardwell, he did go down, had some trouble walking. I believe it was cramps from what I could tell in the reports that were made. But that gave me a little bit of like oh no, because if we don't have him, that could be trouble. But it was good to see both Dylan and Jaheim in a game where Chaney Johnson didn't play his best. To be on the floor, I know Jaheim had 3 fouls, but with 9 minutes left in the game, Chaney had 1, Dylan had 1. So it was good to see him stay out of foul trouble and just be available.
It was an aggressive game because if you noticed halfway through the game, Dylan Cardwell had to change his jersey.
Yeah, big 40.
44 ripped, so he had to wear jersey number 40, which didn't even have his last name on the back. So that's how aggressive this game was. But when you think
40.
of this game, Tahad Pettiford won this game. He had 24 points, but his plus minus at the end of the game was 19. Dylan's was 18. So Dylan Cardwell provided that spark after halftime. He had a nice dunk, the first 2 points of the game. So you look, oh, 2 points compared to 24 points, but that's only one difference in plus minus because of rebounding. And I read that off in the first half when Georgia was making a comeback. You know, it was rebound, miss shot, miss shot. But the reason it was so frustrating, it wasn't like Auburn kept missing the shot and then Georgia had a defensive rebound. It was so frustrating because Auburn would miss a shot, they would get the offensive rebound and then miss the shot again. That's why it was so frustrating, because we were winning the rebounding battle, but we still couldn't get a shot off. So it was just so many more missed shots because we were getting so many rebounds, which usually in a game getting those so many rebounds is good when we make the basket. So I think that's why it was super frustrating. But Dylan Cardwell was the one that won the rebounding battle for us. 6 offensive rebounds, 7 total. And then Miles and Chad both having 5 defensive rebounds each is huge. But definitely won the rebounding battle for us was Dylan Cardwell.
Definitely. And he had help too. Like you said, Jaheim helped him. And another guy, Chad Baker-Mazara, really got in on the glass, as he's been trying to do. I feel like he's been crashing the boards more, but really made an impact on Saturday afternoon.
So we talked last game against Mississippi State where Chad Baker-Mazara had 18 points the first half and the second half had 2. This was kind of the complete opposite. He had 3 points in the first half, 10 points in the second half. So he had the first points of the game, knocked down a 3, gave Auburn a 3-2 lead. That kind of sparked the offense in the beginning. But then it was kind of radio silent for him. Like I said, he was what was it? He was 1 for, I think he was 1 for 8 in the first half, which is very unlike Chad Baker-Mazara. But then there was a crucial part in the second half where he makes a 3. And I tweeted out, I was like, that was the spark that Chad needed. He needs to right here have that light of fire under him and go on a run. He ends up scoring Auburn's 8 straight points. So after that 3, he scored another 3, Chaney had like a pass backdoor cut to Chad Baker-Mazara, which led to a nice layup. But scoring 8 straight points for Auburn is huge in a game where, like I said, Auburn was shooting horribly. And for him to come step up in the second half and get 10 points, he had a steal and a bucket from the inbounds pass, which I love that play. But again, from kind of the opposite from last game, scoring 18 and 2 and then now 3 and 10. But anytime you could score double digits in a second half, we'll take that, especially from Chad Baker-Mazara.
100%. And I thought against Mississippi State, that first start that he had, that whole first half when he was so dominant, I love when he gets active like that and starts moving. In the first half yesterday, I kind of thought it was the opposite. To me, he looked a little flat. He was flat-footed. He was getting beat off the first step, which is rare for him. And if anything, his arms give him such an advantage, where he wasn't really using them yesterday in the first half like he had been up to this point. So defensively, I was a little surprised by the lack of production that Chad gave to Auburn in the first half. And during that dwindle, like you talked about in the back end of the first half, when we're looking for that guy to step up, previously it's been Chad, especially with Janai out. You're waiting for 10 to have his charisma moment where he just goes and makes some play, and that's the spark. And that's the spark Auburn needs. But that didn't come in at the end of that first half. And I guess Chad had just packed his lunch and was saving it for the second half, because the second half he exploded. And it was really, really good to see. He got his feet back under him. Maybe they gave him some Gatorade or something. I don't know what it was, but he was lively again. And Auburn really, really fed off that in the second half. And I thought that was a huge, huge, huge boost as a duo to Miles Kelly and Tahad, who are really scoring the basketball. It almost made Chad want to get in on it too. And he got back into his normal groove and really started scoring the basketball.
Yeah. So we talked about that dwindling of the first half, and Auburn comes away with the win 70-68, but Auburn didn't score in the second half for the last 2 minutes and 35 seconds. So you're going to talk more on this now, but this is Auburn closing out both the first half and the second half was really not good. Hopefully this is something they definitely are going to work on moving on to Tennessee, but not scoring for the last few minutes in a game is really, really dangerous. So we are lucky that we came away with the win.
Definitely scary. As students, we know this. When you get assigned a test and you start studying a week before so you can pace yourself, right? You want to study a certain amount every single day. Say you forget to study on Wednesday and Thursday, you got a test on Friday, you're going to go into that test a little bit cold. Well, the same goes for basketball. If you're up a ton, don't let up, and you'll still be up a ton, and you'll be ready for that second half. You'll see what that second half throws at you. Well, Auburn didn't really come and finish the first half like that. They didn't study on that Wednesday and Thursday, and they went into their test not doing so great. That first half, they needed something, and I guess closing out the second half was the same deal. It was they had bolstered this lead, they had done it, and then it kind of stopped. And we have seen that a handful of times, whether it be first or second half. We saw it was made it extra close in the second half this time, but that end of half has really got to improve. And I don't know what it is. I think Bruce maybe has to step on him a little bit, get him like to really notice that this is happening, because at some point it's going to come back and bite him, and you don't want that to be like on Saturday against Tennessee, or in an away environment where you should have won the game and you lose. So if Auburn would have lost on Saturday at Georgia, that last 2 minutes and 35 seconds would be so emphasized. But the best play is just to avoid that. Give your offense the best shot they can to go score. Give your defense all the energy that they need to get a handful of stops. You only got to play 2 minutes and 35 seconds. If you're lazy, I still think you could do that. So having that extra willpower, that second wind to go out there and finish. You just need to finish, because I'm afraid that if Auburn continues to not finish, it's going to come back to bite them.
Yeah, so 2 minutes and 35 seconds, Tahaad Pettiford makes a jumper, which is the last points that Auburn makes on the floor that aren't free throws. But the thing also is, if you're not going to score for the last 2 minutes and 35 seconds, you need to make your free throws. Now, like I said, Tahaad Pettiford makes 2 of his, but Denver Jones and Jaheim Hudson both, I think Miles Kelly also makes 2 of his, but Denver Jones and Jaheim Hudson both go 1 for 2. So like I said, that's not, in hindsight, it's not the biggest thing in the world, but in a close game where you're not scoring baskets at all and they're going to eventually at the end, they foul you to get baskets, but you have to make those in close games. And just when Tahaad Pettiford makes that jumper, I think it was 64-58. So from the last 2 minutes, Georgia scores 10 points. Auburn only scores 6. So that's 10-6. So Georgia still outscoring Auburn, but just I think placing emphasis again on free throws is, in a close game like this, at the end of the game, you have to make your free throws. And Denver Jones not making that free throw was kind of a shock. I just think he didn't really have his best game, kind of off, which means I think going into Tennessee, we're going to see Denver Jones have a really good game, because this is not like him.
There has to be no let up until the buzzer sounds. I think it's as simple as that. You can't take your foot off the gas until you've arrived at the destination. And Auburn, I think, learned that against Georgia, and I think they're going to work to very much improve it. But regardless, Auburn walks away with its 10th quad one win of the season, which is its best. Now the Tigers have tied their single season program record with six ranked wins. And now heading into this week, there's no mid-game week, no Tuesday or Wednesday game. So we as Auburn faithful get to gear up our hearts and souls as Auburn, who is 17-1, undefeated in conference play, gets to prepare for Bruce Pearl's old school, number 6 Tennessee at Neville Arena on Saturday in a primetime 7:30 p.m. showdown. I can't wait. This game is going to be awesome. I know Tennessee did get upset last night in Nashville against a Vanderbilt team who came out of nowhere with that win.
Mm-hmm.
Did not expect that one, but Tennessee does have a midweek game. They play against Mississippi State this week. So they win that, maybe they come in a little less angry. I don't know. We'll just have to see. But regardless, it's going to be a really, really good game.
Yeah, this game has everything you could want. It's a night game in Neville Arena. Tennessee coming in. It's Bruce Pearl's old school. Tennessee is going to be ranked. Auburn is going to be the number one team in the country still. It's the annual Outlive game, which is Bruce Pearl's Cancer Foundation. So that always having that game is incredible. And College Game Day is coming to town.
Oh,
So
yeah.
this game literally has everything you could want as a college sports fan. I think everyone has been waiting for this game because Tennessee was ranked one for a while when everyone thought Auburn should be. Tennessee gets crushed by Florida and now losing to Vandy too. So their second loss in SEC play. But this has everything you could want. And especially last season when Tennessee absolutely, well, not Tennessee, Dalton Connect absolutely killed Auburn. He 39 points. Thankfully, he's not on Tennessee anymore because that man absolutely just what that game was the Dalton Connect game. So coming into this game, I think just like I said, everything you could want. Night game in Neville Arena, College Game Day coming to town. It's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, and there hasn't been any lack of excitement in the SEC as of late. And Tennessee losing to Vanderbilt was one, but a lot of SEC teams in close games. And Tennessee, they're led by Zakai Ziegler, in my opinion, who's one of the most stable guards in all of college basketball. And Denver coming off a game against where he didn't have against Georgia, where he didn't have his best outing. No better way to come back than against one of the best, most consistent point guards in the country. Now, Chaz Lanier leading Tennessee in scoring with 18 points a game. Auburn has to put a stop to that. And I talked about Chad Baker-Mazara being a little flat-footed against Georgia in the first half. He needs to come out with both feet on fire to guard Chaz Lanier and to compete with this Georgia offense. Just try to do anything they can to slow him down.
I think Chad, Chaney, and Denver not having their best games against Georgia could maybe be a blessing in disguise. I think coming into this game Saturday night, just in Neville Arena, with the crowd is going to be sleeping in Pearlville for like 3 days. I think that kind of would light a fire under these three guys who didn't perform best last game. And I think are going to absolutely have great games. Like you said, Chaz Lanier, he's from Tennessee. So this is kind of like his hometown team. He's a fifth year. He had an incredible season last year at North Florida where he averaged 20 points per game. But Zakai Ziegler, so shout out Long Island. Anytime I see someone from Long Island, especially Zakai Ziegler, he's someone I followed because, hometown on Long Island, us Long Islanders stick together. So I really have loved watching him play. But he's one of the veterans in the SEC. He's one of the best guards in college basketball. He was SEC Defensive Player of the Year last year, preseason first team All SEC, Naismith and Wooden Award watch list. Just has scored double digits in every single SEC game so far this season. He has 16 points the last 3 games. So yeah, I'm excited to watch Zakai Ziegler in person. I don't think I've ever seen Zakai Ziegler play in person. I
Yeah.
think Tennessee, the last time they came to Neville Arena, I think it was either during our spring break or when we were home for Christmas break. So I'm so excited to go see Zakai Ziegler in the jungle. And, I can't hope he has a good game because I'm an Auburn fan. Like, I hope Denver Jones does shut him down, but I hope it's a good matchup.
Yeah.
But Long Islanders stick together.
I think no doubt it'll be a good matchup. I'm curious on Tennessee's side because Chaz Lanier, if you watched the game last night, 76-75 loss to Vanderbilt. He was the guy who got fouled, made a free throw, missed a free throw. Court gets stormed. That's a big mental thing. If you're the guy who misses that free throw, it's hard to move past that. And I'm very interested to see how he does or how he attempts to do after a tough outing. And now Tennessee, they've lost 2 of their first 3 SEC road games so far this season, and they got another one. I mean, it's the toughest place to play in college basketball right now is Neville Arena. So I think it's going to be an all-out brawl. I think Neville Arena is going to have no roof because it'll be taken off quite early in the game. Somebody will probably do something crazy. It's going to be awesome. Energy is going to be at its peak. College Game Day will be there. We're leading the country in game day visits 5 years in a row. Auburn basketball has had College Game Day show up to the Plains. Plus, we've got the Field of 68 coming down as well, which is going to be an awesome time. We're hoping Jeff Goodman and Rob Doster can make it to the Plains to see the number 1 team in the country face off against. I don't know what number Tennessee will be when the AP poll comes out, but we're going 16-2 Tennessee right now. How about that? We'll go with 16-2. It's going to be a thriller, 7:30 prime time game on Saturday in Neville Arena. Can't beat it. Jojo Cavanagh, what else you got?
You can't beat it. Auburn is the only undefeated team in the SEC right now with Ole Miss losing to Mississippi State. So we gotta keep that with beating Tennessee. So I am so excited.
Yeah, I'm juiced. And I know there's one other guy who we'll talk to later this week, Chaney Johnson, who may not have had his best game against Georgia, but he's coming to straight out the jungle with his absolute best. We get to sit down with him early this week. So we'll make sure to get you guys that ahead of the Tennessee Volunteers versus the Auburn Tigers on Saturday. I'm pumped.
I'm so pumped. I think I've say this every show that Chaney Johnson is my favorite storyline of this team of this season. So I think everyone knows I am so excited to talk to Chaney Johnson and kind of pick his brain on coming from D2 to Auburn, playing without Janai Broome, starting for the Auburn Tigers, heading into Tennessee. So we're gonna have a lot of good content with Chaney Johnson for you guys. And then Saturday, hopefully have a lot of content with College Game Day, Field of 68 coming. So it's going to be a packed week, but like you said, we're pumped.
Yeah, there's going to be some juice somewhere at a Neville Arena on Saturday. But regardless, Auburn beats ranked Georgia 70-68 in Athens. Tigers 10th consecutive win. A great one for Auburn, an awesome one for Tahaad Pettiford, the freshman who just shined. That's all I've got. Jojo, you got anything else before we take off?
Nope, that's it. We're just excited.
Let's go. For this episode of Straight Out the Jungle, my name is Vince Wolfram.
And I'm Jojo Cavanagh.
Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and stay tuned for every single thing Auburn Tigers, #1 ranked team in the country that we've got coming to you on all platforms, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Check it out on everything. Not TikTok. Well, I guess TikTok's back. I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah, be sure to watch our Miles Kelly interview if you have not yet, and be on the lookout for our Chaney Johnson interview coming soon.
Definitely. We're looking forward to it. But until next time, War Eagle.
War Eagle.